Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you today. We're going to do another day of our watercolor journal series. So yesterday we did a very folk art inspired landscape, a stylized landscape. Today we're going to do something a little bit more realistic. And this is inspired by my local area's flora and fauna. I live in a very mountainous and meadowy region, so lots of mountains, lots of meadows, river valley kind of area. So that is what I'm going to use for inspiration for this on one of the many hikes I've been on in this area. All right, so we're going to get started and basically draw some very simple lines. So we're going to start with kind of this hilly ground line here, and I'm going to put in just a few other kind of low rolling hills here. This is more of a hilly meadow area. And then we're going to put some peaks in the background, some mountain peaks. These will be much bigger. And maybe something here further in the background and here. Okay, so we have lots of lines. I know those are really light. Let me draw them in a little darker for you so you can see them on camera. And then we're going to do a nice moody sky, I think. All right. Beautiful. Okay. And we'll probably add in a little color later on, or I'm just thinking flowers or something in the foreground here. So let's get started with the sky, I think. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to create, let's see, a Payne's gray, a slightly blued Payne's gray. So I'm going to start with Payne's gray, add lots of water, and I'm going to add a little phthalo. I'm going to add a little ultramarine. Actually, no, I'm going to add some cerulean. This is a much grayer blue color, this cerulean. Add that in there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take clean water. I'm going to wet my sky. And actually, I'm just realizing I really want to lighten this one before I get it wet. I want to lighten this one pencil line here along the edge. Okay. Continue getting that wet. So fun fact for you, once you get graphite wet, it's permanent, so you can't erase it anymore. So be careful of that. Once you put water, even if you haven't painted over it, it's just water over your graphite pencil on your page, you won't be able to erase them anymore. So, okay, nice and damp. All right, so now we're just going to start plopping in some of this color. And I'm kind of going in a swooping fashion like this to emulate clouds, dramatic sky. Some of it will be much lighter, but I'll drop in some more color to make some areas even darker. So kind of get that moody feel. And as things dry too, I will add more color so it doesn't bleed out as much. You can pull out color, so you can pull out more highlights if you need to. Just letting that dry for a moment, getting a little bit drier. And core paint, so I'm using I'm using a Princeton size 10 Velvet Touch brush. I'm using Core Paints QOR by Golden. Core paints travel really fast and far, wet on wet. So Just keep that in mind. Your paints might not travel as quickly. They might need a little more assistance than mine, or if you're using core, just know that they travel pretty fast. Okay, so that's our sky, and we can always revisit it later. This shape was just a little unnatural for me. We can always revisit it later to put in darker or more color as it's drying. And having contrast in the sky too helps, having some darker areas so it doesn't fall completely flat against some of the lighter areas. Okay, now I'm rambling. Okay, let's leave it. Let's move on to our grass down here. I'm going to start with a light green color. So this is sap green. Water it down a little bit. And you know, let's put in, I'm going to take some of this cerulean and Payne's gray. I'm going to water it down a lot. I'm just going to make some puddles. Add a little more cerulean in there. Okay, so first thing I'm actually going to do is I am going to paint in, and I didn't draw these out, but just a few little areas of like puddled water. All right, now I'm going to paint around those. I'm going to add in this light layer. Of green, lots of water. Those should dry pretty quickly if you didn't put too much water on them. So you can paint around them. And we're going to have to do a couple layers down here, so just keep that in mind. All right, let's move, let me add just a little more color. There we go. Let's move to some further hills away, and just keeping in mind, I'm going to use my brush strokes to kind of indicate direction. And this might come out a little bit more in the additional layers that we put on, that things are kind of on a hill and swooping down. So using downward strokes like this. There we go, leaving some white spots. They'll probably get eaten up later by some darker layers. All right, let's take some more sap green. You can add in a little phthalo blue. And you can add some of this wet on wet. Let's create a little shadow here. Again, kind of coming down the hill. Darker color around our little puddles here. All right, so we're going to let that dry. Getting up close to those little water features, and we'll add in some shadows in there later. Okay, let's let that dry now. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, dry this all so we can work on our mountains in the background. All right, things are nice and dry. We are going to use a darker version. So this Payne's Gray cerulean mixture here, I'm going to add some green to it. And a little more cerulean to get this kind of muddy, murky gray color, but that has like hints of green to it, much darker. And that is what we're going to do our mountains in. First, I'm actually going to do a lighter color further in the background. I'm going a little bit outside my outline here. And I want this one to be lighter, so it gives a sense of depth. So this one is going to be, the others are going to be much darker, so this will look like it's receding into the background. Okay, so I definitely went outside the outline. No big deal. My outline was so light that you can't tell. And you can make decisions like that as you go. I do just want to be careful these don't run together. So just painting this in. Again, we're not putting much detail in these areas, just using color and texture to kind of translate the look and feel of like a mountain range. And I'm definitely going to do another layer on these as well. That will be even darker. It's a nice moody piece. So this one definitely has to go to this darker color. Just bouncing my brush along. Letting some lighter areas pop through. Pulling out a little color. There we go. And you can see how this much lighter version back here really pushes things further in the background. Add just a few little light wash on top just to bring it a little bit forward. There we go. All right, so let's get back into some of this green foreground. I want to add some more shadows, so let's pull out some more sap green, some of this bluish mixture to kind of darken it, and I'm just going to create some other, a little dark, too dark, texture to indicate like highs and lows and rough patches in the grass. I just don't want it to be flat. So you can see I'm letting my brush kind of bounce around, going in the direction of the hill that I want to indicate. You can use, this is a point where you could use some dry brushing to just create some texture, like this. And if you are looking at an image, you can kind of match this to like the values that you see in the image. All right, so for the water in the front that we already put in, I'm going to use some of this darker color. And I'm going to add a little bit like around the edges to kind of give it a little more structure. I keep pausing, I'm concentrating very hard today. But I want a lot of that light blue to still show through. There we go. All right, Now let's put some details in the front here. Meadow. Sorry, just pulling out some color up here. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to switch to a smaller brush. I am going to get some sap green and some Payne's gray to make a really kind of deep olivey color. And I am just going to, so I'm using a size 4 now. You could use a rigger or a liner brush. I'm just going to go across the front. I like this because I can, instead of a rigger, I can make it thicker kind of towards the bottom here. And use the side of my brush and then get up on the tip of my brush to make those more thin lines. You can go all the way across. You could just do one little section here. I'm going to go all the way across. And then I think I'm going to add some flowers in. Now you could, I didn't mask anything out, and they might not come out as bright as maybe you would want them, but you could also use like gouache on top of this if you wanted more of an opaque look, but I'm just going to use some watercolor and maybe some bleed-proof white. All right. Just a few taller areas. Let's grab some, I'm going to just grab some magenta straight from the palette and just kind of pop them in here. And I'm just stippling, boop, 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 boop. Some of the green is still wet towards the bottom and letting the flowers run into it. And I'm not going to go all the way across. I'm just going to put them on this side, I think. And you could use bleed-proof white. Should I try some yellow in here? I feel like it's going to get lost, but let's give it a try. Just putting a little yellow in there. It will probably get lost as it dries, but that's okay. All right, and then a couple of dabs of bleed-proof white. Very subtly. This little wildflower field. And then if you need to add in any additional lines to connect any of those little flowers at all, you can do that. You might want to get that little rigger brush out. Sorry, I really have to clean my brush off. I had lots of bleed-proof white in there. And then you're done. All right, this was fun. This nice moody landscape. And a little bit more here. Maybe put something on the edge of your little water puddles. And you can always go back and add more details if you wanted to add another layer. Let's do that real quick. Look up here to give this some more detail. Just some texture. You can do that. And then we have a beautiful little mountain meadow landscape. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Shayna Cersei. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone that you may know who might also like this. Oh, we have to take off our tape. I didn't do that in the last video, and I'm sure I will get comments. The reveal is the best part, but while I do that, I will remind you to check the description for links to supplies and materials that I use. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for supporting me and watching these. I hope you are enjoying this journal series. I'm going to continue with this for now, and I will see you next time. All right, y'all, happy painting.